Hello, and welcome to the Table and Well podcast. I'm Tennison.
And I'm Ginelle. Thank you for joining us as we discuss topics and give practical tools that help you live, grow, and be in healthy, joy-filled relationship with God, yourself, and others.
For more information and resources, or if you're looking for coaching, connection, and community, please visit tableandwellco.com. We hope you enjoy this podcast. Hello, and thank you for joining us today on the Table and Well podcast. This is episode number 4 of our series, Stories from the Table. As always, please feel free to download and subscribe to this podcast on your favorite listening platform. And you can also subscribe to our YouTube channel at Table and Well Co. Well, guys, we are, again, as always, excited that you're here with us. And this is the continuation of our interview with Maranda and Darryl. And last week, in our last podcast, Maranda just gave some really incredible insight. I love her description of what the table is to her when she said it was unhurried and human. And that just carries so much weight. And if you haven't listened to it, I encourage you to go back and listen to it. It was very, very good. Well, in this episode of our podcast, we'll be listening to Darryl give his response to that very same question. To me, or to you, the table is or has been. And just like Miranda's answer, his is very profound and very personal and very in-depth to him. And one thing I really love about this, guys, is that Ginelle and I are listening to these responses in real time. So we haven't heard any of these answers beforehand. These aren't, pre-recorded or written out in any way. We're hearing it the exact same time that you are. So you're getting our full and actual response as well. So guys, here we go. We're going to jump right back into the conversation that we were having with Darryl and Maranda. And here is the conclusion of this part to Stories from the Table.
If you don't have a table 7 other days of the week, like you have one here, I didn't even think about that.
It's truly it feels like family, I think, which seems a given, and then it's just not most of the time. Yeah, it's not. It's not. It's huge.
It's really I have a curiosity question for you about that. Mm-hmm. So what's fascinating about how this table has developed is that we have on any given week a mix of people that come regularly and people who might be their first time, and we're up to 24 seats now. Typically we run about 16, so that could be half or half. How has that been for you in sharing heart with people who you now are getting to know over time, like you said, in these little drips and sips, which is beautiful language, but also in meeting with people that you've never met before, and here you are sharing your story and hearing theirs. How has that been for you?
That's a good question.
I think that sort of the beauty that the table does create some, if it was a room of 24, I would probably be in the back corner, in the back row, who I am, but making it 8 or 10 people makes it accessible, and like I said, the table, I feel like it's innate. You're this is good. I'm supposed to be here, and so it brings it into this structure. I can see everyone and know everyone. So I've done both, where I've shared at tables where I knew some of the people and where I didn't, and I think it was cool to see the connection that came with strangers some weeks, and then the people that I did already know, learning more about them than what I thought I knew. And so I think it's healthy to kind of practice both. I found both are uncomfortable, so we're here to grow. It's gonna go.
I love it. That's really good. That's really good. Thank you. Yeah.
So Darryl, for you, how about that? To me, the table is.
I think the very much similar to that is that I think people coming to the table come with that sort of, I suppose, an expectation, or you know that that's what it's going to be. So I haven't found the change of people intimidating in any way or making me hold back, checking them out before I say anything. I've just always felt it a very safe place. I felt that I could bare my heart in my season of struggle, and people were compassionate, people were kind, people, I'd never felt judged or any negative. It was just, it was a safe place,
Yeah.
you know. And I think just sitting around a table, I'm at a table eating a meal, is always probably the most profound connection point, you know, of a group of people is sitting around a table eating food. As you said, Jesus, you know, connect with these guys. Let's cook some fish.
Yeah.
So we need to eat so that we can connect. You know, fellowship is spelled FOOD. And it's never been having new faces at the table has never been a negative for me. And I think just hearing those other stories, being able to realize you're not alone in your struggle or whatever it is, you know. So it's been good.
I often find it profound seeing new faces at the table, because it's like, we were talking about this earlier, it's like bringing long lost siblings to meet each other. And how beautiful is that, to see these facets of God, to see God in operation in people's lives that like you would never know of otherwise. And then here you are sitting across the table from a complete stranger who's walking their own walk on this earth with the Lord. And wherever they are at this space on the journey, you like meet at this intersection. And it's not this this meeting of discomfort, but it's a meeting of almost what would the word be, where there's this resonance of you get to walk with him too, you know, and how's he walking with you? Okay, how are you experiencing this life? That's how you're experiencing this life, whether good, bad, or indifferent. But and it writes this beautiful tapestry of humanity that we normally would never get to see or hear. A story that's bigger than even the 8 people at this table in that moment, but we see this kingdom picture being painted.
That's
beautiful.
That's one of the things that we even talked about in our last podcast, was that like when we started the table, it was never to draw people or gather people to Tennison and Ginelle. Like that was never the focus. It was always about how do we gather people to God? How do we gather people to understand that we're part of a larger story than ourselves, that we're part of the kingdom of God, we're part of the family of God. And so being able to point people to that direction and not have just not bringing people in for ourselves, because that was never, again, our goal was always to say, okay, now how are we connected? And then we know there's more than what's happening, than what we're seeing. So how do we bring in the more? But in doing that, also saying, nope, but we're not we're connecting to each other, but we're also connecting to him, and we're part of a bigger family. And
I think too, we were seing that happening in the collabs, in these little pockets of people online connecting globally, like you're talking about. And we were watching this beautiful thing happen among those 8 people who were strangers prior to that collab, which is very similar. You're sharing your heart, your story, and your journey. And then getting to do that, though, in person over a meal is like a whole other level of beauty that just took what we were seeing in these little micro spaces, and now everyone gets to see and experience and interchange with one another.
It's beautiful. So very true. Darryl, I had a question for you. When you were talking about, when you're telling your last story, just about people coming to the table and it always feeling like it never felt unsafe or out of character or whatever for you to be able to share. I was just wondering, I'm curious, what happens that gives you the feeling of safety to be able to like continue to share, even going through rough situations and tough times and things like that? What happens here at the table, or what has happened that made you feel like this is a safe place to be able to bare my soul?
I think that one thing that comes to mind is, I think you guys facilitating, and the last time I was here it was Justin. Is it Justin?
Jason.
Yes.
Okay, close. I think just the way the table is set, if I could use that analogy, it's it creates safety. It creates a sense of you're safe here. It's okay here. You can be yourself here. You don't have to wear a mask. You don't have to pretend. So, and then I just think the leading just sets the stage for transparency and vulnerability. You know, that I can just, here's my heart, and it feels safe to say this is what's going on inside of me. This is how I'm feeling. This is why I'm feeling it. Somehow, maybe I'm not hitting the nail on the head, you know, but somehow it's just the way the table is set just facilitates that, you know.
Yeah, I love my favorite story with you is your first time coming, and there were tears at the table. And
Thank you, Ginelle.
You're welcome.
Always made me cry.
And we
She was so kind. Her kindness brought me to tears.
And we have this joke that it's not a table without tears. Because usually someone's crying, whether it's because, wow, I've been hearing this and never even knew I was, or haven't experienced people to share that with, or people to show up when I think that was
one of the things was just a group of people that I could share with, that I hadn't really had. I mean, my kids were going through the same grief, so they weren't really a place for me to share, you know, add burden to their burden. But I'm sorry, Ginelle, I'm cutting on you.
No, that's great, because it's true, and people were able to join with you and hold that with you, whereas you didn't have a space before to do that. And then the next week you tried to not come to my table.
You guys tricked me.
You remember that?
Because it was this table. So I thought, okay, next week I'm going to go to Tennison's table. So I went over there and Ginelle swapped tables. So I ended up with it, and she made me cry. I won't say you made me cry. You facilitated me crying.
You facilitated the tears.
Yes.
It's one of my favorite memories of you.
Actually,
you were trying to get out of it.
If
There I was.
if I do remember the story correctly, it wasn't Ginelle.
It actually wasn't me.
It was someone else that
triggered the tears. That just spoke to her.
I don't remember who it was. But I wasn't at that table, but I remember. I heard the story.
So, super fun.
That was great.
Super fun. Yeah. So one question for you is, what is it about the table? Like, if you could finish the sentence, to me the table is.
Yeah. I did think about that. It was that, in this season, Psalm 23 was really a key for me. Not so much the valley of the shadow of death, but all the rest of it. And I just thought of, where it says that he prepares a table for me in the presence of my enemy. And the table has been, for me, has just been a table of the Lord, a place of, and what happens at a table is connection, is nourishment, is intimacy. So all the things that one experiences around a table, for me, it was the provision, and it's been a restoring of my soul. He restores my soul. It's been quiet waters, it's still waters of rest. And just being able to come out of some of the darkness of grief and have the table of the Lord. It really was. It really was for me.
I love that.
Yeah, it really was a Psalm 23 table for me.
Wow. That's cool. So get this. What I read to open today, the very page before it says, the first thing the person walking through shadows and storms is met by is a table.
Yeah.
You prepare a table before me.
Yeah.
Psalms 23:5. He says, not a quick bite or a loaded backpack or a jam-packed lunch pail.
Yeah.
Those walking through the darkest valley are promised an unhurried, sit-down meal to eat in peace, even in the presence of our enemies. Lest you think this mention of food in the midst of trouble is an isolated incident in the scriptures, recall the beginning of the Exodus from Egypt. From the burning bush, God speaks to Moses that he wants to deliver them from their identity as slaves in Egypt to a land flowing with milk and honey. To come out of the shadows and storms, first we need to come to the table and sit at the place God has prepared for us.
Yeah. Yeah. That's very good.
Wow, that even brings a whole nother layer of dimension to what we've really felt the Lord asked us to do when we started this. When he said you set the table and I'll do the rest. And where there was no where all of that happens, we had no clue, we had no idea that Darryl would be at our table, that you would be at our table, that whoever would be at our table, and the things that they'd be walking through, and that this being a place of safety and connection and belonging, and I didn't all of that. We kind of had an idea, but we had no clue.
At the same time.
And
I would say we've just been as honored and enamored and humbled by the whole experience as anything else. It's just been incredible. Every Sunday we look at each other and we're just what in the world, you know? To watch people show up for each other, to watch the Lord show up in beautiful, quiet ways through other people.
It's
time and time again, time and time again. And when you talked about in the beginning, here we go again, who knows how it's going to happen. It's like that, right? We have no guarantee what's going to happen, and yet he shows up beautifully every time. Every time, and people show up for people every time. Any other parting thoughts that you came just wanting to share about the table, and when you were thinking about your story and this time together?
I did want to add on to Darryl's story, but when y'all are asking about what creates safety and security, I think what it was for me was someone who went before me and their reflections was really vulnerable, and they shared a heavy check-in, and so I was like, oh, okay, we're doing this, we can, it's okay, because I've been in plenty of circles where we come in and everything can be kind of over spiritualized, or it's really bad, but it's okay, it's but you're not doing well, it's fine. Okay. And so I think you taking the risk to do that opens the door for other people to have that freedom as well. And I think that's back to the humanity piece. We need to know that we're not suffering alone.
And it's okay to have those emotions. They're not negative. I think sometimes in the church we kind of feelings are bad. They ungodly. But they're not. They're just voices. They're just the voices within, just saying, hey, something's not right, and then to pay attention to those.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the table.
Isn't it fun that we get to do it here?
Do it.
It just
One of
makes
the
sense.
Seems right.
It's right.
Seems right.
You've been listening to the Table and Well podcast. New episodes stream every Tuesday. To begin your journey to relational health, go to tableandwellco.com/community101. Again, that's tableandwellco.com/community101.